Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports Plus. And in today's video, we're going to be doing our AP Top 25 review and results after this most recent college football week. If you are new, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We're not going to waste your time. Let's jump right into it. Number 25, the Miami Hurricanes. Look, they had a complete disaster, and you see them falling in the rankings, losing to Georgia Tech by a one-score game. And they actually had the ability to knee the ball down to end that game, did not, ended up fumbling. Austin, how bad of a change of events was that for Miami as they ended up losing and now falling quite a ways in the AP Top 25 this week?
Yeah, I mean, it was a disastrous loss that is inexcusable in a lot of different ways, and it's going to be the topic of conversation throughout the duration of the week, as it should be. Miami had the game. All they had to do was knee it out, but for some reason wanted to run the football. I'm not exactly sure the logic behind it, but it's one of those that you just cannot do. And when everything is so tight and this is such a game of inches, you have to be very careful, especially in situations that you're going to win. So Miami dropping down, it's a tough loss for them, but nevertheless, they're going to have to, bounce back and figure out a way here moving
Right,
forward.
seeing that game play out, it almost felt like I was watching a game of Madden online with how teams typically are aggressive even with the lead at the end. Just a no-brainer decision there from them that doesn't make any sense. 24, we got Kentucky. 23, we have Kansas, and then 22, we have LSU coming off of what was a pretty impressive win as well for them, knocking off Missouri this most recent week, 49-39. They end up moving up only one spot, surprisingly, despite a win against another top 25 team. Kind of shocking here for me, Austin, seeing LSU only jump up one spot. And then what do you think kind of about Kansas, Kentucky, some kind of historical basketball schools that we've seen more recently here in the AP Top 25 for football?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Kentucky. They had their hands full all day. Brock Bowers ends up actually passing AJ Green in career touchdowns for the University of Georgia. They were dialed in every single quarter of that game, and they kept their foot on the pedal. It didn't matter the score. So a very complete win. But, Kentucky they could not handle it. It was just way too much for them, in that game. Kansas has been rather consistent. I've been impressed with them. This was a laughable team for the last couple of seasons prior to the last two here. But I mean, overall, they have found a rhythm, they found a flow. And then LSU, as you had alluded to earlier, gets the win against a ranked Missouri team who has been incredible throughout the duration of the year. But LSU got the job done, through the air as well as on the ground. Jaden Daniels had a big game rushing the football. Malik Neighbors continues his historic run for LSU. That guy is the real deal. Check out our mock drafts that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks, as you will see his name over and over again. So LSU is the big, name out of this team grouping. And to me, I was very impressed, through and through with how they played.
Again, very surprised to see them only at 22. Time out 21, we have Notre Dame, who actually did suffer a defeat this week to Louisville. So we're expecting to see Louisville jump up. They were ranked 25th last week. We'll see where they ascend to after that win over Notre Dame. And then Tennessee, they're at 19. The Volunteers find themselves in a pretty good spot, kind of normal territory here for Tennessee, a team that typically is a pretty good football school. What's your thoughts on Notre Dame and Tennessee, Austin?
Yeah, so Notre Dame, there was a lot of critical mistakes made by Sam Hartman for Notre Dame against Louisville. He throws 3 interceptions. That's just something that you cannot do against another ranked opponent. Notre Dame has had their issues this year. It's ups and downs, it's excitement, it's drama. It makes for phenomenal TV. So to me, Notre Dame dropping down this harshly, I was kind of surprised, but also not surprised in that same vein. Josh Heupel does a great job there at Tennessee. Keeps them ascending. This seems to be the theme for them. Get, severely underrated. And then all of a sudden they're able to pick up some steam midway through the year. This always seems to be that time, 5 weeks into the season when people realize how good the Volunteers are.
Yeah, a good amount of movement here so far in the top 25. Notre Dame falls 11 spots most notably. Let's jump forward now into our top 18. Washington State, they themselves suffered a loss this week as well. Kind of a tough one for them. UCLA finds themselves standing pat at 18, and then Duke actually moves up to number 17, looking at some of those most recent games. What are you kind of thinking about these programs? And is this where we start to get into some of that more, competitive territory about teams that can maybe make strides going down the stretch of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. When you look at where these teams are, Duke has impressed a lot of people here throughout the course of the year. UCLA is a team that needed that so desperately against Washington State. Chip Kelly had a great game plan put together. This team was ready to rock and roll. So seeing these two teams, very, very close. Washington State had shocked a lot of people with how consistent they've been all year long. Their offense was humming. Everything seemingly had gone together and had created for the perfect storm. But yeah, the suffering a loss here was tough to watch for them.
For people wondering how Duke moved up, there was a couple teams above them, Notre Dame and Washington State, that both fell below. That's, kind of explaining the +2 rise there for Duke at 17. Let's jump forward now into our top 16. We've got Utah here at this spot, and we also have Oregon State. Very interesting that those two teams find themselves neck and neck with each other, given kind of how the last couple of weeks have gone. Oregon State on a little bit of a winning streak right now, 152-40 against California this past week. And then when you're looking at Utah, Austin, they are coming off of what was a loss against Oregon State. What do you think about these two programs? Obviously been very decent, I would say, the last couple of years, specifically Utah.
Yeah, I mean, Utah has been the epitome of just consistent success year in, year out. And it's all about that coaching staff. They continue to find the right guys that fit the program, are never, in that top 30 really for, consistently for the recruiting rankings, but they find a way to get the job done. Oregon State, another Pac-12 team that continues to gain traction. And when you look at the quarterbacks that are in the Pac-12, I would say this is the best conference in terms of the quarterback play that we've seen so far this year. They've been the most consistent. They have 8 guys that are very, very good quarterbacks in this college football landscape. So overall, I think that Oregon State is going to continue to get some looks here. And I think they should continue to ascend, moving forward in the AP Top 25.
Yeah, during the preseason, the Pac-12 was kind of a big topic of discussion. Obviously, they've had some good performances this year, though, from some of those teams that still remain. Let's jump forward now into Louisville, one of the biggest risers of the week. They move up 11 spots up to number 14. Ole Miss slides up a few spots as well, as does UNC. So we're seeing some more of those basketball schools in here, Austin. Louisville for a little while had a good basketball stretch. Last year, not so much. North Carolina, obviously a good historical basketball school. What do you think about some of these teams becoming really good across the entire landscape of college sports? And then most specifically about these football teams here from 14 to 12.
These schools understand that football is where the money is, and that's why they are going to allocate so much resources individually. And NIL has helped as well for some of these other schools that just have money historically. So rather than being as predicated on general success for recruiting purposes, money is a big factor. And just general notoriety continues to grow these programs, specifically in the football department. But North Carolina looks great. Drake May, they absolutely dismantled, Pitt in that fight or that last game here. I've been impressed. Excuse me, not Pitt. That was against Syracuse. So 47, they were firing on all cylinders. Ole Miss in a competitive game against Arkansas, they ran the football effectively. Ulysses Bentley, the fourth, was tremendous during the course of that game. He was averaging over 7 yards a carry. They continued to pound the football, but most notably, Louisville here, starting off, the fact that they're perfect has been a real eye-opener to me in that ACC, and they continue to ascend forward.
Yeah, what a great start to the season for Louisville, specifically with this most recent win against the Fighting Irish. Let's jump toward the top 10 here. At number 11, Alabama. Again, really kind of uncharted territory historically for Alabama during the Nick Saban era, although this year it seems like they've been outside the top 10 more often than not, and they're kind of struggling to break their way back in. They get a win against Texas A&M this most recent week. Austin, where are the Crimson Tide at in your current rankings, and do you feel right about 11?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily feel right about 11, but it probably, with how things have transpired so far, I think it's a fair way to look at it. But at the end of the day, Alabama's consistent. They're going to find their way back into that top 10. It was kind of a scary win, against Texas A&M, a team that has a lot of talent on roster, but hasn't put it together. But Alabama definitely they were a little nervous during that game, especially the Alabama fans. So them at 11 here, it's about right. But if I were to actually put them in a playoff setting, I don't know that I would have Alabama outside of my top 10.
A&M has had their number in recent weeks, or in recent years, excuse me. So kind of getting that win there is big. USC, they've been playing a lot of close football games. Their most recent win was, of course, a one-score game, actually a 2-point win in overtime against Arizona. But then the week before that, of course, they had a one-score win against Colorado. Austin, this isn't necessarily what we expect from USC, especially coming into the year with some of the buzz around Caleb Williams. You thought, hey, this team maybe has a shot at being a top 5 team in the nation. Right now, they sit at 10. What do you think about the Trojans at this point?
Yeah, I think, the fact that USC is not getting enough love seemingly is kind of incredible to me. You have a Heisman level quarterback, again this year that should be, universally recognized as the first overall pick. The fact that they're at 10 only, it actually just doesn't sit well with me. I get that they've had some close games. They haven't looked their best, but at the end of the day, they still have Caleb Williams. He rushed for 3 touchdowns in the most recent game there. Caleb Williams is the real deal. And I think that they should actually be higher than 10.
As we get further in the top 10, we're going to see some of these really crazy changing of the guard moments here. And one of them is Texas at 9. They dropped 6 spots after their loss to Oklahoma in what was the Red River battle. And obviously the Sooners come out on top in that one. In a 4-point win against the Longhorns. Pretty drastic drop for a 4-point loss to another ranked team, in my opinion. Dropping 6 spots is pretty significant. And you see 2 other Pac-12 schools here, Oregon and Washington. Feels like there's a lot of Pac-12 teams here in the top 25. Austin, talk about the Longhorns and then those 2 Pac-12 schools we see on the screen right now.
It was a close game, between Texas and Oklahoma. Dillon Gabriel kind of stole the show, if you will. He had probably, I think it was over 400 combined yards passing and rushing. He had a phenomenal day on the ground. They could just not contain him to save their lives. But Quinn Ewers had 2 critical interceptions that changed the trajectory of the game. So that's something that we have to really consider here. Another quarterback that's seemingly a top 20 selection in this upcoming draft struggled in a big game. So nevertheless, they were competitive. They were there the whole time. I'm not knocking Texas too much because Oklahoma's a tough team to beat, and they have found their rhythm a little bit this year. But to me, Texas being there, Oregon and Washington, 2 high-powered offenses, Michael Penix as well as Bo Nix. These 2 Pac-12 schools are really riding the back of their quarterbacks. They have good rosters through and through. But like I said earlier in the video, these Pac-12 QBs are actually the real deal.
Yeah, there's been a lot of great production there. Obviously, Washington and Oregon going to be 2 teams to watch. Texas has an uphill battle now after their loss, but we'll keep our eyes on them in future AP Top 25 videos. Let's jump into the top 6. We got the Nittany Lions from Penn State, and most notably, Oklahoma is a big ascender here, moving from 12 all the way to 5. Typically, that top 10 is hard to burst into, let alone climb in. They climb all the way up to the top 5, 1 spot out of what would be, college football playoff territory, right? Historically in the top 4. So, Austin, we got Penn State here, Oklahoma. What's your thoughts on these 2 and how far could they potentially go?
Yeah, I think James Frankel's done a terrific job with this team here. Drew Aller being the superstar quarterback, I think he has some room for growth. That's something that we do have to consider moving forward. But at the end of the day, this defense is the real deal. They have enough playmakers to potentially push them into the college football playoff conversation. This Big Ten is wide open. I think Penn State is as competitive as anyone in the conference, which we will get to another Big Ten rival and 2 Big Ten rivals upcoming. But at the end of the day, Penn State's a phenomenal team through and through. Oklahoma, phenomenal job. I had alluded to Dillon Gabriel and the fact that he had a monster game when they needed him. The experienced quarterback, the former transfer from UCF, has done a great job with his new team, and they are firing on all cylinders.
If you're an Oklahoma fan, let's comment Boomer Sooner down below. Let's see how many Oklahoma fans we've got watching the video at this point. And the top 4, what everyone's been waiting for. Let's fully dive into it. Florida State and Ohio State are 4 and 3. Obviously, both sliding up a spot with Texas falling. Austin, what do you think about Ohio State, Florida State? Both programs playing really great football right now.
Yeah, I look at Florida State riding the back of Jordan Travis, who has had his ups and his downs. However, this is a team offensively that is super tough to contain, to stop them on the ground, and more specifically through the air. It's a tough matchup when you go up against Florida State, but they took care of business this past week. They didn't skip a beat. And then Ohio State is another team that you have to watch out for because there were some concerns offensively. You go back to that Indiana game, and there was people having some questions about the QB position, but Cal McCord has, thoroughly taken this job by the reins, and they had a great game against Maryland. I look at Ohio State as an exciting team moving forward, and offensively, they're tough to stop. Marvin Harrison Jr. had another heyday, in this one. Once again, they're moving forward, and they're trying to push into that top 2, but it's going to be very, very tough to supplant the top 2 teams with how they're playing.
Yeah, Michigan and Georgia both up here. Just a reminder, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for more, because next week there's a ton of top 25 matchups as well, including a couple top 10 matchups that we're going to see next week. But Michigan and Georgia here, Austin, you said it. Michigan coming off the big dominant win over the Golden Gophers against Minnesota, just kind of dominated that game from start to finish. And then we could say the same thing about Georgia. They just obliterated a top 25 team in Kentucky. That's nothing new for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs in recent memory. They just seemingly blow out everybody. It feels like week in, week out. How good are these two football teams? And is Georgia still your favorite to win the national championship again this year?
Yeah, I mean, it would be incredible if they did, but you look at these two teams. Michigan was dominant in every fashion of that Minnesota game. Quarterback Ethan Kelly-McManus for the Gophers had all of 52 passing yards on 15 attempts. So they could not throw the football effectively. They couldn't run the football effectively. Why? Because Michigan is so stout with their front seven, their corner play, and their offense is so good at times. I mean, they can run the football very, very well. JJ McCarthy, I think, once again, I think there's a little bit room for growth for him, but he knows how to win football games with this infrastructure around him. But Georgia, in a dominant fashion, beats up on Kentucky, which I was not expecting that big of a routing. However, they just look great in that one. Brock Bowers continues to impress me year in, year out, and there's nothing new once again this past week.
The only thing better than Georgia football is Austin's coverage on college football. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Don't miss out on future Utility Sports Plus content. Like he said, there's going to be mock drafts, more AP Top 25 videos, NFL Pick'em, a lot of great stuff. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, leave a like, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports Plus video.